Things are just the right thing to do without an audience or a call to action outside of oneself. Some things challenge our integrity simply by posing the question within ourselves, am I doing the right thing? Most often, this introspective query meets us in the face of adversity, and we find ourselves at a crossroad of instant gratification and long-term satisfaction. In many cases, instant gratification manifests as convenience, the path of ease. Instant gratification urges us to indulge. It prompts us to be individualistic, self-serving, and entices us to clear the path to greener grass, so long as one does not look back and see the collateral damage of their decision. Long-term satisfaction often presents itself as a challenge. It urges us to be ambitious and critical, to face a problem head-on. Long-term satisfaction requires one to think of themselves and others facing obstacles and strategizing to overcome them. This, for obvious reason, is the path less walked. It is also the path most commonly walked by women of color who, in the face of adversity, do not simply acknowledge strife, but are compelled to investigate who else is suffering silently and working tirelessly to amplify their voices, build community, and leverage strength in numbers to procure change. The women of color that represent the fellows conducting the research behind this report have committed to the long-term satisfaction of working towards equitable change. The initiative taken by women of color to gather, organize, and conduct research to investigate not a quantity of people, but the quality of their lives. But the quality of their lives they live has the potential to move us forward in improving our social structures and facilitate our lived experience. During a worldwide series of crisis in a country with minimal relief issued from its political leaders, working class and student women of color took it upon themselves to work towards the relief their officials failed to provide a country in need. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the US distributed minimal financial relief, issuing only up to two stimulus checks, publicly performed gratitude for essential workers, going as far as calling them heroes, but failing to provide any additional care, resources, support to compensate them for their sacrifice, and often fell short of adequate pay or fair working conditions. Accommodations made were short-sighted and reflected ideas cultivated from a place of privilege. Social distancing policies and procedures for work and school were not accessible to those who needed accommodations the most. Over the course of the study, our fellows discovered that those most impacted by disparity were continuously despaired and neglected, even as they were promised equity, change, and a solution-oriented approach. This report is a call to action. The efforts of women of color have produced a key to map out and identify the problems within our social systems and structures and suggest where we can implement change. This report is a guide for future policy recommendations so we can begin to strategize against structural and systemic oppression by implementing structural and systemic solutions. This report codes the comments reflecting the lived experiences of women and gender-expansive folks of color across the US and paints a picture of disproportionate impacts the COVID-19 pandemic has had on these demographics. This report is demystifying. It calls out the highlights where we have been let down systemically, structurally, and the poverty, despair, helplessness, and lack of accessibility that has been left behind and seemingly forgotten. The illumination provided by our findings is a vessel of hope, a hope for us to be seen, heard, understood, and empathized with, to be treated as a neighbor or a relative in need rather than a throwaway in the eyes of society. It is with great pleasure and gratitude that myself and the fellows I have worked closely with are able to pass the torch of long-term satisfaction. We challenge you to understand the problems in our systems and structures and face them head on. We challenge you not only to consider yourself, but your neighbors. We challenge you to ask yourself the same question that compelled us all to put our heads together to do what we activists call the work. Am I doing the right thing in this situation? It is our hope that this leads you to meet us on the path less walked so we can heal together with equity as equals and make our way back home. Sincerely, Chloe Williams.